All right, we have an easy one today, a quick one, and one that you guys have been asking for. We're gonna do some keto cowboy candy, which seems unfathomable, doesn't it? Given all the sugar that's in cowboy candy. But that's what we're gonna do today. Welcome to Grow and Preserve. I'm Carter, I'm so glad you're here today. Let's get started. Let's talk just for a minute about the sweetener that I'm gonna be using in my cowboy candy. I use a sweetener called Allulose. It is about 70% as sweet as sugar. It is natural, but probably by now made in a lab as it continues to gain popularity. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. It is significantly pricier than sugar, but it flat out works. It has not been tested by the USDA for home canning. It is approved for commercial canning. It has been found to be heat stable. It does not change taste, flavor, structure. It doesn't crystallize. It doesn't do anything. Let me tell you its limitations though, because it's important for you to understand. Sugar, when you use sugar in a recipe like this, aside from adding the sweetness, its main purpose is to maintain the color and the texture of the fruit or the peppers or whatever it is that you're using it with. So Allulose does not have those properties. It will not maintain the color or the consistency. So I find it best when using Allulose, and I use it in all my fruit products, all my pickle products. I can't think of, I guess the only thing I haven't used it in the past 2 years has been the pecan pie in a jar. And that one was just too decadent. So I have not found any other issues except that after a year, it does start to degrade a little bit. These will start to get darker. I don't know if you can see them now. They're pretty bright green, reasonably bright green, you know, for cooked peppers. Now the red is there, but they will start to get a little darker and a little mushier after somewhere around the year point. I don't know exactly what it is, but that's what I found. So when I do things with Allulose, I really plan on quantities that we can use up within 12 to 18 months. And then I just don't have a problem with it. So do keep that in mind when you decide on your sweetener of choice. I assume that Splenda also does not have those properties of sugar. So I don't know. I don't use Splenda, I don't use sucralose, and I don't like, for me, the erythritol in the mix with the monk fruit and the stevia so that you can measure for measure like sugar. I don't like erythritol at all. It doesn't taste right to me. But Allulose tastes just like sugar to me. So that's what I use. I made a little batch yesterday because I had so many jalapenos, and I made enough so that I could have some brine, because aside from not being able to have jalapeno candy because of the sugar, my husband does not eat sugar, or should not eat sugar. So he had never had cowboy candy before. And so we'd never gotten to use the brine for a marinade for like a big pulled pork or something like that. So I made some extra brine for myself, but I wanted you to see that it's not syrupy, but it's not as thin as just vinegar. It does add some viscosity. With the Allulose, there's no sediment on the bottom. It doesn't, undissolve itself as it cooks. So anyway, I'm really excited to have this on the shelf as well. And we're gonna put 8 more jars of cowboy candy on my shelf. I have 4 here. I think I have 3 left from my batch that I made earlier this summer. So I think that's probably gonna be about a year's worth of cowboy candy for us, and that'll be just fine. So I will link some articles down below for you about Allulose, and you could go read about it yourself, decide if it's something that makes you comfortable. You know, as I said, I've been using it for a couple of years and I'm very comfortable with it in my kitchen, but I am not the health police. You may do whatever suits you in your kitchen. So you decide, but if you do decide it is a good option, or if you've been using it in a keto lifestyle, low carb lifestyle, low sugar lifestyle, diabetes, cancer, whatever, it fits in beautifully, and it allows so many additional things to actually taste good. There's not the little aftertaste that goes on with so many of the substitute sweeteners. So give it a shot, see what you think, do your own research, that's about all I can say. Let's get into chopping some jalapenos. I have 3 pounds of jalapenos here that I harvested yesterday. Whoop, just got washed up, and clearly I'm still dripping all over the place. I'm gonna bring you down, I'm gonna glove up, and we're gonna start chopping peppers. All right, I hope that we don't have a lot of noise interference today. My neighbors have some kind of bulldozer or digger or something or other in their backyard. So I imagine that'll be yet another pool in the neighborhood. All right, let's get started with this. I'm gonna do a full batch. This is the recipe that is most closely resembling my recipe. So I will link it down below. It's from a farm girl in the making, and it's really very close. So I'll link this, and I'll also give you my modifications. And let's get some chopping done. We're gonna chop up 3 pounds of jalapenos. And I'm just gonna throw them into this bowl. Put a bowl there. I like to mix in some red ones because I think it makes the jar look pretty. But if you don't have red ones, that's fine. I didn't have any in my harvest earlier this summer, and they still taste delicious. So I'm gonna do rings. If this were just for me, I would probably prefer to, dice it up small like my hot pepper relish. But David really likes the rings. He likes to see that he's eating jalapeno. And these are primarily for him because frankly, they're a little hot for me. Well, that brings up another thing. When you go to taste your brine, which we'll put together in a minute, you're going to want to wait until, you're going to want to go ahead and taste it before you put the jalapenos in, because let me tell you, it is quite a different story. Once you put those jalapenos in, it'll get you. Okay, so let's talk about pH issues if we change from sugar to allulose. If you look up allulose, what you're going to find is that the pH ranges between 3 and 7. I don't claim to understand why that is, how that happens. I don't know. I suppose it depends on the source of the allulose. But sugar, the pH of sugar is 7. So if anything, allulose may be more acidic. So it's not going to alter our brine's pH level in a way that would pose a problem or make it unsafe from that perspective. In fact, we will test the pH of the brine. Both times I've tested, it's been right at about 3. So as I mentioned, David has never had, or had never had before this summer, Cowboy Candy because of all the sugar. So he's delighted with this. I did a taste test on it earlier this summer. I guess it was probably end of July, and then of course August hit and the Every Bit Counts challenge, and that just kind of took over August, and that footage is somewhere. If I can find it, I will, I'll put it in here. He really enjoyed it. I really liked it too, as long as it was on a big bite of hamburger, because I needed something to offset the heat. My jalapenos are particularly hot this year, but I don't know, it may be too hot for me no matter what. It is amazing what a difference a new knife makes in cutting these peppers. This is the Nakano knife. It's the Santoku variety. Well, it's a little messy right now, but I introduced this a couple of weeks ago, and I just love this knife. Absolutely love this knife. This was a gift. It was not something I bought myself. I probably wouldn't have thought about buying it myself, because I thought, with 4 knives that all looked the same, I could just make it through a video without having to stop and resharpen all the time. But now they sent me this, and now I don't have to stop and resharpen. So I'm pretty excited by that. Sorry to bust in on you, but I wanted to give you a bit of an update on this knife. It has been about a month or so since I introduced it, and I have used it every day since then, every single day, and some days multiple times during the day. It has done everything I've asked it to do. The knife I'm using in this video is the Santoku knife in the Mito series from a company called Nakano Knives. They are out of Seiki, Japan. This is one of the finest pieces of craftsmanship I have in my kitchen. Everything I have asked it to do, it has done for me beautifully. So I wanted to let you know that starting Monday, October 16th, the video you're watching now comes out Saturday, October 14th. So starting Monday, October 16th through October 29th of 2023, my code, Grow and Preserve at Nakano Knives, will be worth 20% discount instead of the normal 10% discount. So you have 2 weeks to take advantage of this starting on Monday. I do have a few items coming next week, and I will certainly show those to you when they come in and tell you what I think of them. I have the chef knife from the Micarta series coming in, so I'm looking forward to that one. I also have the knife sharpening tool coming in, which will be great because the one I use is from IKEA, so that will be a tremendous step up for me. And I also have the magnetic knife board. So I'm looking forward to all of those things. I'll show them to you when they come in. But I did want to make sure, since this video will be out on Saturday and the sale will start Monday, I didn't want you to miss out on a whole week of thinking about it, perusing, thinking about your Christmas gifts, thinking about carving those turkeys and hams and roast. You know, whatever you do for the holidays, you might want something a little bit better to not mutilate that turkey, right? I know that David is very excited about having a truly sharp knife to carve the turkey this year. So go take a look at the website, see what might interest you, think about people in your life who need gifts. Also think about yourself. You know, as canners, we dice and chop and slice probably far more than the normal home cook. So don't forget how much easier a fantastic tool can make your job when it comes to canning and preserving food. So with that, I want to say thank you again to Nakano Knives, and now I'll send you back to the video. You know, there's so many different ways to do cowboy candy, and I'm sure they're all absolutely fine. Some of them process for 15 minutes in a water bath, some of them process for 10. I choose 10. I'm going to do it in my steam canner. Some of them raw pack everything, but I don't like to see the float of the jalapenos, you know, after they've been processed. I want a full jar of cowboy candy, not just a few floating around the top. So I do heat mine up for just a few minutes in the brine. So we'll see. But whatever way you do it, I'm sure if it suits you, it's absolutely fine. All right, we're finally done chopping jalapenos. So let's move this out of the way, take off this glove. Okay, that is a full bowl. All right, let's get ready to make the brine. We need 2 cups of apple cider vinegar. And then let's get the seasonings in, and then we'll come back and do the allulose. So for garlic, we're going to do a tablespoon. And I'm going to add mustard seed, which is not in this recipe. I'm just going to do a teaspoon. And then some celery seed. I'm going to do a teaspoon. Actually, I'm going to do a half teaspoon of celery seed. And then I'm going to do some turmeric to make it that beautiful yellow color. So I'm going to go with half a teaspoon of turmeric, a full half teaspoon, put it that way. All right, now let's get our allulose in. I'm going to need more than that, I think. We're going to need 5 cups. This recipe calls for 6 cups of sugar, which even though allulose is 70% as sweet as sugar, it still is too sweet for us. So you have plenty of flexibility in how much sugar you add. It will affect the viscosity of the liquid. So I'm going to use 5 cups in this full batch here. This is the Allulose brand that I really prefer. I find it to be the best price and the best consistency. I'll show you here. Get out the little scooper. A normal serving size is that, so we're going to add quite a bit today. As you can see, I hope, how fine those grains are. And it just dissolves really quickly in the heat. All right, so we're going to add, this is a 1/2 cup measure. We're going to add 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, I may have enough. That never happens. That was perfect. All right, 5. So that is, oh no, that was 5 1/2 cups. All right, so I knew I wasn't going to have enough. Okay, so I need 5 more. Six, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, that's it for my brine. We're going to take it over to the stove and start heating it up, and I'll bring you over so you can see what we're doing. Okay, so here's my brine starting to heat up. You can see the allulose still hasn't completely dissolved yet. A little bit of white down in there. But that will finish up here in a couple of minutes. I'm going to let this go for maybe 3 or 4 minutes once it comes up to a simmer to make sure everything is fully dissolved. And then we're going to put the jalapenos in and give those 4 or 5 minutes. Toss them around in here, make sure everything is well coated. Everything goes into the jars a little warm. I do have I don't know if you can see it. Turn you just a little bit. I have the steam canner going. I have my jars in there. They're heating up and they'll be ready to go when we are. Okay, this has come up to a simmer now, and I'm going to add the jalapenos. Okay, they're all in there. Just toss them around. They will shrink down a bit as I heat up. Let those heat up for another couple of minutes. I want them to shrink down just a little bit because, as I mentioned earlier, I want my jars firmly packed. You can see how much they've shrunk already just in the couple of minutes they've been in here. I'm going to go for just solids at first, and we'll get all of these filled on solids, and then we'll come back and do liquid. We're going to go to a 1/4 inch headspace. So one thing Allulose does do, like sugar, is that it does get sticky. So you want to be really careful with the rims. Wipe those really well. I'm going to go back and pack all of these down. Make sure that they are in there tightly so that they don't float up. right, I took it down to 7 half pints because they just weren't as full as I'd like them to be. We're going to do a pH test. I still have the brine in here. It needs to boil for another few minutes to get super hot. And this is what I'm going to use. This is the, well, they put a label on the front of it, but this is the pH test that I use for my microgreens, for my kombucha, for canning. So we're just going to do a quick test, and you can see where this is. It's one of the few that goes all the way down to 0. So, you know, a lot of them will go down to 4.5 or go down to 5. But for canning purposes, you want it to be less than 4.6. And because the accuracy of a litmus test paper is only, you know, 0.5 in here, I want to make sure that it's down below that. Okay, so I'm just going to dip it in a little bit here. Just takes a second. And then we will, ooh, it looks like a, can you see that? I hope you can see that. It looks like a 3 right there. The 3.5 is greener, so it looks like a 3. So we are clearly in good shape here. We throw this away and we'll start loading it into the jars. All right, let's go. I want a 1/4 inch headspace. And of course we're going to need to do a good bit of debubbling on these. So I'll come back and worry about getting it perfect after we've debubbled. It is very sticky, I will say, just like sugar. My steam canner is good and hot, just about ready for me. I'm going to have a lot of brine left over, so I'll go ahead and process some brine as well. I'm going to get on the sides and in the middle of this one because these little rings can be tricky. I can really hide the air pockets down there. See, that one had a bunch. I was able to get 2 jars of brine, which is really kind of fun. All right, so as I mentioned, these are super sticky. So I have some just white vinegar on a paper towel. I use a couple different paper towels because they do get sticky and stuff. So, you know, there could be celery seed up there. There could be allulose up there. There could be a pepper seed. All right, let's get them lidded up here. I have to go wash some more lids. New lids, of course. I do have the link for a discount on 4 jars canning lids. It's down below. My code is Carter10. I do make a very, very small commission on that, but I do appreciate it greatly. Every little bit is a good thing. So as I mentioned, I process my peppers, Cowboy Candy, for 10 minutes. Some recipes out there will tell you 15 minutes. Others say 10 minutes. You know, I choose 10. But you do what you're comfortable with. That is absolutely fine. And I'm using the steam canner. So once it gets up to the appropriate level for my altitude, I will set the timer for 10 minutes, and then included in this canning time for the steam canner is 5 minutes with the heat off, but the lid stays on. If you're using a water bath canner, after 10 minutes or your processing time, you turn off the heat and you take off the lid. Okay? Steam canner is just a little bit different like that. All right, I'm going to get these in. I added some white vinegar to the water. I always forget to do that because we never had to do that in Atlanta. Moved to Tennessee and I have to do that, so go figure. But it is something that doesn't come naturally to me since I didn't have to do that when I learned how to can and for all those years in Atlanta. But I did remember to do it today, so we should not have cloudy jars. You also need to, if you're not using the steam canner, which will adjust, for altitude for you, if you're using a regular water bath canner, you will need to adjust for altitude. I do always have that down in the description box down below the video. I have a chart that'll tell you how you need to adjust for altitude in either water bath canning or adjust your pressure in pressure canning. Okay. I'm gonna wait for that to come up to the dark green, which is for less than 1,000 feet. And then I'll start that timer and we'll be back as soon as it's done. All right, so the canner has just finished its processing time. It's in its 5 minutes, kind of cooled down with the lid on. There was a little bit, oh my gosh, just brushing it up into the air. It's very hot. I can feel it in my throat. I wanted you to see the consistency of it. So is it syrup like you get with sugar? No, but is it just straight thin liquid like vinegar? No, there is a little bit of viscosity in there. So again, just showing you what it does. You do what suits you. We finished processing time and we finished the 5 minutes hanging out time. So let's get this out of here. It'll give you quite the facial if you're not careful. So I ended up with 2, 4, 6, 7 jars of Cowboy Candy and 2 jars of the brine. Let me get my mitt here. There we go. All right, that's what I'm looking for. You can see there's really no float in these because we packed them in quite well. They're starting to seal. I do find that with the steam canner, things take a few more minutes to seal, but I don't have any sealing issues. I hope you enjoyed this today. So whether you decide to give the keto version a try or just stick with your tried and true, that's fine. If you know someone who may be watching their sugar, you might want to pass this on to them. Anybody can do it. You don't need any special steam canner. All you need is a pot that's big enough to turn into a water bath canner so that you can have a couple inches of water over the top of the jars. So that's pretty easy to find, so anybody can really do this. So thank you so much for being with me today. I'm always so glad to have you in the kitchen with me. If you haven't yet subscribed, please click the subscribe button down below. Would love for you to join us, and I'm happy to welcome you into our little group here. It's a wonderful group, and I think you'll really enjoy being here. So thank you. Have a wonderful week. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.